Hello, book friends. I'm Jen. I like to read. So let's talk about what I read in the month of June. It was a pretty good reading month. I read 7 books total. 3 of those were on audio, 2 of those were on Kindle, and 2 of those were physical books. My dogs like to roll around on the ground and knock into my camera, but only when I'm recording. Otherwise, they just lay around, nice and quiet. But the minute I start to talk, it's like WWE out here. Why are you like this? Why are you like this? All right, without further ado, let's jump right in. But first, look at my really cool new thrift store find. My $1.50 gigantic Ninja Turtle margarita glass, which I don't have margarita in. I just have bubbly water. The first book I want to talk about is a book that I've only read half of for June, and that was on purpose. I'm reading half of it in June, half of it in July. There is going to be a live discussion with Books and Heather's Patreon at the end of July. So I did read half of City of Brass. Big Aladdin vibes. So far, so good. I'm going to read the last half in July this month. And so I am excited to talk to you about how I feel about the City of Brass. This one's been on my TBR for a really long time, and I finally had a reason to pick it up. I'm going to go from my lowest to my highest rated reads. My lowest read this month was The Villa by Rachel Hawkins. I did listen to this. This is inspired by Mary Shelley Frankenstein and Fleetwood Mac. And so when I read that in the synopsis, I thought that sounds super cool, super unusual. I need to know what that's about. I listened to this on audio and it was just okay. There was nothing surprising that happened. The most interesting thing was a character in the present reading about some stuff that happened to a character that was staying at the same villa that she was staying in Italy in the 1970s. I really was not interested in this book. In fact, I let it lapse in the middle of listening to it and then had to wait to get it back from Libby. That's how uninspired I was to listen to this book. But I just kept thinking, it's got to get better. It's got to get better. For me, it didn't get better. The best thing about this book is the cover. You might recognize it with the blue wallpaper with the yellow lemons on it. Visually striking. That's the best thing I can say about this book. Would not recommend The Villa. Since June was Pride Month, I was trying to read as many books as I could that had LGBTQ representation. And also with Books and Heather with her Patreon, I am trying to complete my summer bingo card. One of the squares to fill in was to read a graphic novel type of book. So I did read Heartstopper. I just read the first volume. I do plan on reading all 5 of them. It took me less than 30 minutes to read the first volume. And it was good. But I think that it's kind of hard to rate just one volume in this series. Nothing really happened. You know, we were introduced to some characters. They realized they had some feelings for each other, and that was sort of it. So I did give this a 3-star. However, I do feel like once I complete the entire series, the series as a whole will have a higher star rating. The next book I read is a 4-star book, and I listened to this one on audio as well, and it is Lessons in Chemistry. One that I've had on my TBR for a long time, and then the Apple show came out and I wanted to watch it, but I wanted to read the book first. So I did pick up the audio for this one. I gave it a solid 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It was very entertaining. I loved the female main character, but I did give it a 4 stars because it just didn't leave me wanting more. It didn't leave me, when I was done with the book, I wasn't like, oh my gosh, that was such a journey. So I mostly gave it a 4 instead of a 5 just because of the vibes. My one complaint about the female main character is I don't think there was a single time in the entire book where she smiled or laughed or was jovial about anything. She was very cut and dry, very serious, very no nonsense. And I did like that aspect about her. She knew what she wanted, especially as a woman in the 1950s. She didn't take shit from anybody. But on the other hand, I just felt like her character was a little bit too subdued, a little bit too cut and dry. So I did give this a solid 4 stars. I would recommend it, and I'm excited to watch the TV show here eventually. The next book I read was also on audio. Listened to a lot of audio this month because I was playing a lot of cozy games on my Switch. So put my headphones on and killed 2 birds with 1 stone. So I read City of Glass. That is the 3rd book in the Mortal Instruments series. Finally, the thing that I was hoping happened actually happened. So if you've read them, I think you probably, if you know, you know. I rated this a 4 stars. I absolutely love the character of Simon. He is so funny. He makes me smile. I really hope that we get to see more and more of him as the series goes on. So far, I'm really loving the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare, and I read the first 2 books. Well, I read the first book physically, and then I listened to and read the second book, and then I only listened to the 3rd book. And this book is good in all formats. I've loved reading it physically. I loved listening to it on audio. I'm not sure how I'm going to finish out the series. Maybe a little bit of mixture of both. But so far, I am just loving the Mortal Instruments. Which is great because I have not loved YA recently. So it's nice that there are still some YA series that I enjoy reading. All right, the next book that I read, even though it was not a 5-star, it is my favorite read of the month. Again, I read this for a book club with Books and Heather. Can you see a trend here? And that is The Last Murder at the End of the World. The setting, the characters, the plot, spot on. Everything about this book I absolutely loved. Be on the lookout this month for a book review video specifically just on this book. This is the same author who wrote The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, which I have not read. So this is the first book by Stuart Turton that I've read. Love the coloring on this book. The only reason this book got a 4-star was because towards the end of the book, when they were really trying to close in on the murderer, they were really getting closer to figuring out what happened on this island. They were throwing out ideas left and right. It could have been this. It could have been this person. It could have been because of this reason. And I felt like I needed a murder board to try to keep track of everything that they were coming up with. And it got a little bit confusing because of that reason. But once the murder was solved, everything made sense. I was not left confused at the end of this book. I didn't feel like there were any plot holes. There were a few things that I feel like could have been explained better, that I still had a few questions about. But if you want my in-depth review on The Last Murder at the End of the World, which is sci-fi dystopian, then keep an eye out for my video later this month. I have my own book club Discord if you're interested. The link is down below. And in June, our book selection was T.J. Klune in the Lives of Puppets. I've read 2 books by him previously, House on the Cerulean Sea and Under the Whispering Door. I gave both of those books 5 stars. I gave this one 4 stars, and I'm not sure if maybe I gave it 4 stars because I was comparing it to the other 2 books that I gave 5 stars. Maybe if I would have read this book first, I would have given it 5 stars. I didn't feel like this one gave me the same cozy, comfortable, wanting to come back for more vibes. There was a character who in the beginning I loved, and I thought they were so funny. They came up with some hilarious one-liners. But this character is a robot and doesn't understand social cues, doesn't understand sarcasm, which is fine. I've read lots of books with characters that had similar traits, but this character was very annoying about it towards the end of the book, to the point where I just wanted to like push his little robot button off so that he wasn't even in the story anymore. So far, this is my least favorite T.J. Klune book that I've read, but I still gave it 4 stars and I would still recommend it. And then that brings us to the last book that I read, which was a 5-star. I read it on my Kindle. I've talked about this series in the past. Every time I've talked about this series, it's been my only 5-star read of the month. So the series is I don't even know what the series is called, but the first book is The Queen of the Tierling. The second book, which is the one that I read in June, is The Invasion of the Tierling. Second book, just continuing the story, 5 stars. There is something that happens with the character at the very, 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 very end of the book, which I did not see coming. It's just something really small that's going to hopefully be fleshed out more in the third book. And it was a surprise to me, and it is as close as I came to crying at a book in June. So I did tear up a little bit. I didn't boo-hoo cry, but it was a good tear up. It was a good almost cry. Highly recommend this series. Hoping to read the third book in July and then finish out the series in August. And I can't wait to tell you what I think of the rest of the series. So that was my reading in June. I honestly did not read as much as I thought I was going to read. June was my first full month on summer break, and it was busy. What can I say? I'm hoping that July will slow down a little bit, even though I don't foresee that. So I hope I get more reading done in July than I did in June, but I'm pretty happy with my stats for June. As always, I appreciate your comments, your likes, your subscribes. So until next time, happy reading.